Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav, and with me is Renuka RS, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. Afghanistan capital Kabul rocked by multiple rockets ahead of the Tuesday deadline by US to withdraw its troops. Indian Air Force aircraft return after evacuation operation in Afghanistan. New Delhi expresses concern over latest escalation in Gaza, calls for both parties to respect ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Hurricane Ida makes landfall in Louisiana, downgraded to tropical storm. INS Airawat arrives in Vietnam with 100 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen as part of Mission Sagar. And at the Tokyo Paralympics, India ends day 6 on historic 5-medal high. Javelin thrower Sumit Antil and shooter Avni Likhara win gold. As the nationwide free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years is underway, we advise our young listeners to get vaccinated and help others get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. A day before the US deadline to pull out its troops from Afghanistan, Kabul was rocked by a series of rocket attacks on Monday. US anti-missile system intercepted the rockets flying over the capital towards the Hamid Karzai International Airport. Terror outfit Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attacks. According to reports, the operations at Kabul Airport are continuing uninterruptedly. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that US President Joe Biden was informed about the latest developments. Mr. Biden commanded to redouble their efforts to protect US forces on the ground. Meanwhile, United States military is probing the reported killing of 9 Afghan civilians in an airstrike on Sunday. US Central Command said in a statement that the strike targeted a vehicle carrying at least 1 person associated with the Afghan branch of the Islamic State group. It said there were a number of substantial and powerful subsequent explosions after the strike hit the car that was being targeted. The US has been on high alert since a suicide bomber killed more than 169 civilians and 13 US troops outside the airport last Thursday. Meanwhile, a group of 100 countries, including US and EU, have issued a joint statement to ensure a safe passage for their citizens and Afghan nationals who have worked with them and those who are at risk. The statement says such persons can continue to travel freely to destinations outside Afghanistan. US State Department issued a statement that they have received assurances from the Taliban that all foreign nationals and any Afghan citizen with travel authorization from the countries will be allowed to proceed in a safe and orderly manner to points of departure and travel outside the country. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council is likely to adopt a resolution on Afghanistan. The Security Council, under the chairmanship of India's Foreign Secretary, Mr. Harshvardhan Shringla, is discussing the situation in Afghanistan. India is the president of the UN Security Council for the month of August. India is in its penultimate day as the president of the UN Security Council, chaired the discussion on the situation in Somalia and the Middle East. India earlier this month, under the chairmanship of External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, presided over an emergency session at the UN Security Council in the wake of the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. Spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry, Mr. Arindam Bagchi, said that Mr. Shringla presided over the unanimous adoption of 3 important mandate extensions of the UNSC a short while ago. These resolutions were on the Mali sanctions, Lebanon and Somalia.
Indian Air Force transport aircraft deployed to evacuate Indians from Afghanistan have returned to their respective home bases. The IAF had deployed its C-17 Globemasters and C-130J Super Hercules aircraft for evacuation operations of Indians stuck in Afghanistan. The operations after the takeover of Kabul by the Taliban were also carried out under extreme conditions. The Garud commandos of the Air Force also had joined hands with the ITBP personnel posted in the crisis-hit country. The External Affairs Ministry has said that the government is committed to the safe return of all Indian nationals from Afghanistan. Amidst the chaos in Afghanistan, US has evacuated over 115,000 people from Kabul airport, while India has evacuated over 550 people in 6 flights. Last Friday, the government said that safety of Indian citizens in Afghanistan is its top priority. Briefing media, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that India continues to monitor the situation in the crisis-hit country very carefully, and this is an evolving situation.
Our primary focus and continues to be on Indian nationals. I think that was important. We had issued a number of advisories to Indians to leave. Nevertheless, some Indians remained there even after our embassy personnel were brought back. In addition to that, we were able to bring out some Afghan nationals as well as nationals from some other countries.
Mr. Bagchi said the government has evacuated 550 people in 6 separate flights, either from Kabul or Dushanbe. He said of these, over 260 were Indians. He informed that the overall assessment is that the vast majority of Indians who wish to return have been evacuated. The Ministry of Home Affairs have announced e-emergency visas. These are 6-month visas from the Afghan nationals seeking to come to India. The MEA spokesperson said India is seeking a peaceful, prosperous, democratic Afghanistan. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken discussed the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan on phone on Sunday. Our Beijing correspondent quoting reports says that Wang told Blinken that the Afghanistan situation has undergone fundamental changes and it is necessary for all parties to make contact with the Taliban and guide it actively. In his second phone conversation with Blinken in 2 weeks, Wang said that the U.S. in particular needs to work with the international community to provide Afghanistan with urgently needed economic, livelihood and humanitarian assistance. It should help the new Afghan political structure maintain normal operation of government institutions and maintain social security and stability. According to reports, Wang told Blinken that the hasty withdrawal of international troops could allow terrorist groups to regroup and come back stronger. They discussed bilateral ties which were riddled with tensions over a host of issues.
India has said the situation in Afghanistan is raising new questions from the security point of view and it is constantly monitoring the situation. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said, along with the security of Indians, the government also wants to ensure that anti-national forces cannot encourage cross-border terrorism by taking advantage of the situation in Afghanistan. He was addressing the 3rd Balaramji Das Tandon Memorial Lecture organized by Punjab University at Chandigarh on the issue of national security through video conferencing on Monday. He said, nations should remain vigilant and be prepared to deal with any threat. The UN Security Council took up the matter of the recent escalation in the Gaza Strip. India's Foreign Secretary, Mr. Harshvardhan Shringla, chairing a discussion on the matter, expressed concern over the latest incident of violence and said that it underscores the fragility of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas last month. Mr. Shringla called upon all parties to respect the ceasefire and refrain from acts that would exacerbate tensions and worsen the security situation.
The West Bank continues to witness incidents of violence and clashes between the Palestinians and Israeli security forces. Both sides must desist from provocative actions in the interest of peace and stability. We note the progress in the legal challenge to the eviction of Palestinian families in Sheikh Jarrah and underscore the need for respecting the historic status quo in East Jerusalem and its neighborhoods. We also urge parties to refrain from unilateral actions that undermine the viability of two-state solution.
The Israeli Air Force attacked 2 sides on Gaza on Sunday. According to reports, the Israeli army said that the attacks followed clashes between Gazans and the border forces and launched incendiary balloons into southern Israel. Early on Friday, speaking in Washington, where Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett had met with US President Joe Biden, the two leaders in their first face-to-face meeting had exchanged views on efforts to advance peace, security and prosperity for both Israelis and Palestinians. The attack on Sunday came a week after Israeli fighter jets struck Hamas sites in Gaza. According to reports, the strike came in the wake of clashes between Palestinians and the border troops. The incident was the worst since the 11-day Israel-Hamas conflict in May and left several people wounded. The Gaza Health Ministry reportedly said that 41 civilians were wounded with various injuries. Speaking on India's role in facilitating peace in the region, Mr. Shringla said that India is supporting several projects to further this objective in the region.
We recognize the efforts made by the United Nations and regional countries to prevent the hostilities from escalating into another military conflict. I reaffirm India's call for regular and predictable transfer of aid and other essential items to Gaza to ease the humanitarian situation and facilitate early reconstruction as well as for appropriate use of such aid. It is also important that the international donor community supports the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip through the Palestinian Authority.
Hurricane Ida made landfall in Louisiana on Sunday. The only power in the city came from generators, the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness said in a tweet. The National Hurricane Center, NHC, downgraded Ida to a tropical storm on Monday morning as it passed over southwestern Mississippi. President Joe Biden declared that a major disaster exists in the state of Louisiana on Saturday and ordered federal aid to supplement state, tribal and local recovery efforts in the areas affected by Hurricane Ida. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has said that North Korea appears to have restarted its Yongbyon nuclear reactor. In a report, the agency said the laboratory had been operating since July 2021, suggesting that it handled a full batch of spent fuel. Plutonium, which is used for nuclear weapons, is believed to be produced at the reactor's complex. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back. You're listening to the World News. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on the Afghanistan at crossroads. In conversation are Yogendra Kumar, former ambassador, and Aditi Tandon, journalist.
The Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan have naturally led to a major humanitarian crisis, and the world is watching in shock. Apart from the humanitarian crisis, Mr. Kumar, what also remains to be seen and what is increasingly evident now is that with the return of the Taliban, maybe the geopolitical alliances in the region are going to be rewritten, are going to change. There is the Taliban, which is supported by Pakistan. China is making the right noises with the Taliban. They have been engaged with Russia. And there are a number of these factors that point towards potential realignment of forces in the region and which directly leads to a security challenge for our own country. So where on the one hand we are facing this challenge of evacuating all the Indians safely out of Afghanistan, and the government has opened up a special e-visa category for such nationals. It had already said that it will allow all non-Muslim minorities from Afghanistan to come into India. So that is one part of the challenge, and the rest of it relates to the security issue. How do you see the unfolding situation?
Thank you very much. I need to mention one point here that I think talking in terms of geopolitical alliances, of course we can see the alliances kind of things emerging, but it's a little premature to talk in terms of alliances because any alliance, for it to be stable or sustainable, it requires a stable agency, a stable agent. If Afghanistan is a state of instability and uncertainty and still has yet to recover from a situation of state collapse, then perhaps how Afghanistan would really be, let us say, an agent for the geopolitical ambitions of either Pakistan or China or any other country, for that matter, I think is a little premature. So my biggest apprehension at the moment actually is that unlike 2001, when the Operation Enduring Freedom had led to the ousting of the Taliban, at that time there was unanimity as to what kind of political settlement needed to be had in Afghanistan after the ejection of the Taliban. now there is no unanimity. So because the fact the turnaround or change in regime which has taken place in such uncertain circumstances, I think everybody is very cautious and carefully weighing everything as to how things will develop and how they need to position themselves. And I'll give one example here straight away. I mean, one thing, of course, Taliban certainly have sanctuary in Pakistan, could have done far more than what they have done to manage the situation better. But we also know that Taliban actually had no interest in negotiating in good faith for an intra-Afghanistan political settlement. In a way, kept on in the deceptive manner, trying to divide various sort of groups who are interested and then finally to capture power in Kabul in particular. So I think, and they of course now, the mounting problem that they're facing. For example, first of all, as you have seen the video clips, I do not think any of these people have any experience of governance. First of all, we talk about political settlement, a political framework, which actually is the basis for a state formation. Now that is not very clear at the moment. Secondly, the capacity for governance. Obviously, from what you have seen, you don't see that actually manifest. The people that you see, the leadership, I mean, how you see them acting. At the same time, because of the fact that Afghanistan actually has collapsed, despite the fact that Taliban has formally taken over the entire territory, the fact of the matter is these other extremist elements, whether it's Al-Qaeda or it is ISIS or it is the other terrorist elements which actually have regional or national agenda, whether it's towards China, whether it's towards Tajikistan, towards Afghanistan, towards India, towards Pakistan, towards Iran, for example, and so on and so forth, and of course the US. So these people still are around. That's the whole point. So for example, in the northern Afghanistan, the military campaign which took place, it is these people actually helping the Taliban in capturing the cities. Then the other side, which you see here when you talk about any kind of governance, the Taliban have been controlling the area, let us say when Kabul was not, they controlled the rest of the area. Now two major prisons, one is in Bagram, the other is Pule Charkhi, which are actually in the vicinity of Kabul. They actually have been high security prisons where not only Taliban prisoners have been kept, but also Al-Qaeda and other prisoners have been kept. Now the Taliban, having control over that area, have actually opened the prison gates and everybody has gone out. So it shows the Taliban still have to maintain those alliances which they actually have with the terrorist elements. Well, that's one aspect. The other aspect, of course, is the fact that now everybody's talking about instability there, and because of that, the condition inside Afghanistan, talk of humanitarian situation, whether it, as I said, migrations of people, whether it is transnational crime, or, for example, the situation of, refugees overflowing in different territories, different neighboring countries. These are major issues, and India is facing kind of a spillover of that itself, So, at the moment, as I can see, the situation highly fluid, and again, you find something very, very unique here in this particular case, unlike the Bonn process which took place. You have negotiations going on in Kabul, you have negotiations going on in Islamabad, you have negotiations going on in Doha. And all these negotiations, in a way, Taliban actually are the key factor. If they had genuine interest in making sure it's an inclusive government, then they would actually have one single negotiating process.
The most striking development of the recent events and the rapid manner in which Taliban captured Kabul has left everybody, quite flabbergasted about the way the retreat was managed by the US. We all knew that since 2014 this had to happen, and the agreement was signed with the Taliban in February 2020. What happened really, and who do you think is the biggest loser in this entire process? Where does India and US stand? Where do they stand today?
All right. So first, the process of Taliban takeover of Afghanistan as a whole. Actually, I have a different opinion on this, because I was ambassador in Tajikistan from 2000 to 2003. So actually, the Operation Enduring Freedom, I was watching it very closely in Dushanbe at that time. So one thing I noticed, that is the time when I noticed for the first time that the military conflict in Afghanistan has a different dynamic. And the dynamic actually, in a way, it's a bit of mind game between military adversaries. One side knows that they have no chance of winning. They simply abandon their front line and go back and consolidate to fight another day. So in the case of 2001 operations, of course, this time it was more rapid than at that time. But at that time also, in 2001, I think sometime in November, when the Mazar-e Sharif fell in the north, then there were pockets of resistance. But the Taliban knew that their game is over, and they withdrew from the front lines right across wherever the fighting was going on. Of course, I mean, fighting went on for a while, but it was very clear to them that they have to come back. So from Mazar-e-Sharif, there were special flights organized by the Pakistan army to take away these ISI's officers who were actually helping the Taliban fight against Northern Alliance people. And then, of course, then they withdrew and they all came actually into Pakistan. So, and then, of course, when they got the chance after 2, 3, 4 years, then they mounted the campaign again. So the point actually here is that I'm not surprised that people should be saying that they are surprised by the speed. Once they understand the nature of the dynamic military conflict in Afghanistan, once you know that Taliban are winning the mind game, so to say, then they should prepare for the worst.
Another question which is actually on everybody's mind is, everybody who's followed the way the Taliban work knows that they do retreat to their bases, in winter. And isn't it surprising then to strategic experts such as yourself that the US should actually withdraw at the peak of summers and hand over the country as one city after the other fell to the Taliban at the peak of summers? They're in their full force.
I think you have to also put yourself in the shoe of the US president, frankly, and he gave a justification for it. He said that when we have taken a decision to withdraw, then there is no point lingering on, because that means there is a cost to the people are dying there, the American soldiers are dying, there's so much money being spent on that. So that aspect, I don't think even the US, anybody disagrees with that. What the people seem to be saying in the political sort of opinion in the US among some people, basically is that the manner of withdrawal, that could have been better organized. Because once you know that things are just collapsing, then do not wait until last minute, because last minute things collapse even at a faster rate. That's the whole point. So the situation that you find that, there was this chaos at the airport not been sorted out, but they could have actually started taking people out earlier. That's my point. So now we talked about India. I remember in question talked about India. Where does India stand? I think India's position in a way is not different from the position of most countries, because we have also suffered the blowback from the previous phase of Afghanistan, where Taliban actually were ruling the roost, so to say. But also because if Afghanistan remains unstable as it is, and different countries are trying to play their own little games there, that India is worried, as I said, because it becomes a source of instability in the region which is very close to us. And therefore, we actually will be facing the situation there. So what India actually, I think, rightly doing is to build up the international consensus, to tell the Taliban, convey the message to Taliban that, listen, the times have changed. You are a poor country. You will have to govern the country at some point. And you are not fully in control of Afghanistan. The Panjshir Valley, for example, is not under their control. Some of these military leaders like Dostum and Nur Atta actually have left the country. So the possibility is that they are also waiting for their time to come back and again put pressure on the Taliban inside the country. So the point actually is to convey a message, strong message today, that once they face the reality of governing Afghanistan, if they do not change the ways, they are only getting into a greater mess. And this mess, they will be suffering, so will other countries be suffering. That is how I think. And the reality actually is that, Taliban, how much can Afghanistan isolate itself from the rest of the world? That's the point.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
India has crossed yet another milestone in the COVID vaccination drive, with the total vaccination crossing the 64 crore mark on Monday. The Union Health Ministry said more than 49 crore vaccine doses have been administered as first dose and over 14 crore vaccine doses given as second doses so far. Indian naval vessel INS Airawat arrived at Ho Chi Minh City port in Vietnam with COVID relief material on Monday. The ship is carrying 100 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen based on the requirement projected by the government of Vietnam in its fight against the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement, the government said that the delivery was part of the government of India's vision of Sagar, or security and growth for all in the region. The Indian Navy has been proactively engaging with countries in the region and has been at the forefront of numerous humanitarian missions spanning the entire extent of the Indian Ocean, including South and Southeast Asia and East Africa.
India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Mr. V. Muralidharan, reached the Kingdom of Bahrain on Monday. The minister, upon arrival, tweeted that he looks forward to his interaction, including with several dignitaries and the Indian community. This is his first visit to the country. During the visit, the minister will hold discussions with Bahraini ministers and dignitaries. He will also meet a wide cross-section of the Indian community in Bahrain, including those in health, education, business and social service. In a statement, the External Affairs Ministry said that India and Bahrain share excellent political, economic and cultural relations which have further strengthened in the past few years. Both countries have cooperated closely during the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister of India Dr. S. Jaishankar welcomed the diplomatic advisor of the President of the UAE, Dr. Anwar Gargash. In a tweet, the minister noted the steady progress in the bilateral relationship and discussed regional concerns of common interest.
And now a report from the business world.
At the stock market, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange shot up 765 points or 1.4% to end at an all-time high of 56,890 today. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange spurted 226 points or 1.4% to a record closing high of 16,931. At the domestic forex market, the rupee jumped 42 paise to a 2.5-month high of 73 rupees and 26 paise against the US dollar. Among the global markets, key indices in Asia Pacific ended higher. So Japan's Nikkei 225 index ended 0.5% higher. China's Shanghai Composite Index gained 0.2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 0.5%. South Korea's Kospi Index inched up 0.3%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index climbed 0.7%. In Europe, France's CAC 40 and Germany's DAX had traded 0.2% higher each, while London's stock markets were closed for a holiday. Crude oil futures steadied today, giving up most of an earlier rally to a 4-week high as Hurricane Ida weakened after forcing shutdowns of the U.S. Gulf oil production, and OPEC Plus looked set to go ahead with a planned oil output increase. So Brent crude moved up 11 cents to trade at $72.81 per barrel, but the U.S. crude futures fell 30 cents to $68.44 per barrel. And back home, gold slipped 199 rupees to 46,389 rupees per 10 grams in Delhi. This is Nishit Kumar for World News, All India Radio.
Moving on to sports, at the Tokyo Paralympics, India on Monday secured its second gold medal. India's Sumit Antil set a new world record to win the gold medal in the men's javelin throw F64 event at Tokyo. With a throw of 68.85 meters in the final, he took India's medal count to 7. Indian shooter Avni Lekha created history by winning the gold medal in the women's 10-meter air rifle shooting event at Tokyo Paralympics on Monday. The 19-year-old became the first woman from India to win a Paralympics gold medal. Avni finished with a Paralympic record and in process equal to the world record with 249.6 points. Yogesh Kathunia clinched silver medal in men's discus throw after registering his season best attempt of 44.38 meter, while Devendra Jhajaria won silver medal. Sundar Singh Gurjar bagged bronze in the men's javelin throw. Devendra Jhajaria grabbed silver with a personal best throw of 64.35. This was also his third medal at the Paralympic Games. Sundar captured bronze with a season best throw of 62.58. India ended day 6 on a historic 5-medal high.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Afghanistan capital Kabul rocked by multiple rockets ahead of the Tuesday deadline by US to withdraw its troops. Indian Air Force aircraft return after evacuation operation in Afghanistan. New Delhi expresses concern over latest escalation in Gaza, calls for both parties to respect ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Hurricane Ida makes landfall in Louisiana, downgraded to tropical storm. INS Airawat arrives in Vietnam with 100 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen as part of Mission Sagar. And at Tokyo Paralympics, India ends day 6 on historic 5-medal high. Javelin thrower Sumit Antil and shooter Avni Lekha win gold. India celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Kuwait.
वैष्णव जन तो दीने कहिए जे बीज पराई जानी रे बरगु के उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान नानी रे
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.